And obviously Brian Kelly was very passionate and very he look at that.
Yeah.
Look at the atrium.
I mean, this is
the band.
This is the highest quality image I could find.
Oh, man.
Those are the days.
Absolutely.
They're social. Yeah. Put it on Facebook.
That was just incredible. All right, let's get to this Kelly sound. You ready over there, Lloyd?
Yep.
All right, let's get to it. We'll just run down the list here. First one, obviously, is him talking about Greg Brooks. We had to break these sound bites up into two, so here he is talking about his reaction to what he had heard earlier this week from Greg Brooks Sr.
But I would be remiss if I did not address Greg Brooks Jr. and the situation that unfolded in a interview that was done on Good Morning America. There's many things I can't say because it is pending litigation, obviously. But here's what I can tell you. It is factually incorrect to state that I was not there by Greg's side through this ordeal. I was there on multiple occasions. We had somebody from my staff that was there virtually every single day. We love Greg. We love him for the person that he is, for the competitor that he is, and the battler that he is, and can only wish him continued progress as he goes through an incredibly difficult time. But it was important for me to set the record clear as to my care, my love for Greg Jr. during this very difficult time. And again, I want to be clear that any player that is part of this program, I am going to be involved in making sure that they receive the best care, the best support, and I'm part of that. So that was just extremely important for me to talk about.
More from Kelly yesterday talking about Greg Brooks and the situation.
Look, you can question me as a football coach. You can question me in terms of the things that we do on the field, but off the field, as a parent, as a husband, as somebody that is actively involved in every community that I've been involved with, this is where the line is drawn with me. And that comment struck a nerve with me. It hit my heart. Because that's not why I'm in this business. I've been in it for our players. We'll always be in it for our players. And it rattled me that somebody could possibly be so factually incorrect in stating that I was not part of Greg Brooks Jr.'s care and support. And the support was the entire university, the entire community. So I needed to make sure that that record was clear.
Brian Kelly very adamant on where he stood during the when Greg Brooks was in the hospital and where he was with his support on that. And look, I think good for Kelly in coming out and announcing his stance. You could tell he was very convicted by that, and he felt very strongly on that. And that's there is two sides to every story, and there we got both sides of it. And for people who are saying that the reaction was too quick, maybe so, but I think any time that you have even the opportunity of what Greg Brooks Sr. said, I mean, for him to use a national platform and say that, there has to be some type of conviction what he's saying. Somebody's not telling the truth. You know what I mean? After hearing both sides of it, both sides look very convicted. Both sides sound like they are, one side's suing. The other side's kind of like hitting the desk saying, I was there. You know, I mean, so somewhere along the way, there's a disconnect.
You said there's two sides to every story. There's three.
Yeah.
There's your side, my side, and the truth. And there's somewhere in between the third side, and that's where, if you're LSU, if you're Brian Kelly, if you're Greg Brooks Sr. and Greg Brooks Jr., I think a lot will be telling if this actually does go to court.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of where it's headed. But I mean, both sides have kind of said their case, and you move on from it and just kind of wait to see, where the legalities shake out of it from that standpoint. But at the bottom line of it, I mean, at the center of it, at the nucleus of it, I mean, you've got a human being that played and laid his life on the line for the program that deserves and should get support from everybody. I mean, there shouldn't be a line that kind of dictates where you have to cross. I mean, Greg Brooks gave everything he could to the university, to the program, and for that, we should all be supportive at the highest point. So, I just hope this all works out for the best. But moreover, I just hope that Greg Brooks can make a full recovery.
It's sad that it's come to this.
Yeah,
right.
Very much.
And that's where if you want to pick sides, which I think that's irrelevant at this point, but the fact that it's even a conversation topic, that means that at some point it fell by the wayside on LSU's part. Like if this isn't even a talking point that's been brought up, and there's any truth to it at all, then it's a failure on LSU side, and that's where LSU, and whether it be the football or just the university in general, needs to make sure that Greg Brooks is taken care of and made whole in terms of whatever quality of life he can have remaining. And that falls at LSU's feet. Like, they have the means to be able to provide, they should do it.
Amen. Yeah, I mean, I think that's all that needs to be said on it. All right, Kelly was talking about a lot of things yesterday. That was his comments on Greg Brooks, and after the Brooks, kind of what he said there, he moved on to a lot of topics, including the transfer portal and the adding to the roster, in which he did this offseason.
All right. We've put together, kind of some talking points. Obviously we don't have a high school player that will sign today. All of our high school players signed in the December signing period. And at that time, we were able to talk about them individually, ask and answer questions about them. We have 15 of them here that are in our off-season program. We're excited about them, but we also supplemented that with a transfer portal class that by many publications felt it was an elite group. And we had 16 total transfers come in, 8 on offense, 7 on defense, and 1 special teams player. And we're pretty excited about that. They give us a experienced group that has played high level football and blends to the existing program that we have. So from that perspective, combined with 3 straight top 10 high school signing classes, we wanted now to enter into adding to that roster. And I think we addressed it, and we believe that this group now is such that we can compete for a championship.
One second. Take a quick break real quick. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. We had a mix-up with my son getting to school this morning. I just had to take that phone call real quick. All right, keep it moving. That was Brian Kelly talking about the transfer portal. Here he is talking about NIL and the contributions to the bottom line.
I think when we talk about some other things, we're very appreciative of our fans and the generosity. the $1 million match that I put out there relative to NIL. It looks like we've met our goals, and I couldn't be more excited about that and the direction that allows us to continue to move relative to NIL. So we had an anonymous gift that matched it in its totality, plus I think there'll be a release here in the next 48 hours that we also were able to match the initial NIL. So that's pretty exciting.
The contributions of the offseason of the fan base to the NIL efforts of LSU. Here he is talking about what's coming down the line. Revenue sharing. You've got the collective. You've got Bayou Traditions. Has everybody gotten on the same page?
No, and I think that's a natural question to ask, and that revenue sharing comes to us, assuming that the House NCAA decision, is finalized. But I know there are some programs around the country that have had to cut back, but that has not been the case here.
Here he is introducing his new run game coordinator. It wasn't all about just adding players in the offseason for Brian Kelly. He added some key players to the staff, and I think the line starts behind Alex Atkins, at one point offensive coordinator for Florida State, at one point a very highly regarded offensive line coach throughout college football, somebody who LSU has been toe-to-toe with in recruiting wars over the last couple of cycles, and now able to add him alongside Brad Davis, alongside Frank Wilson, alongside Brian Kelly with what he has and brings to the offensive line and his coaching and development at that position, with Joe Sloan Cortez Hankton, is just another enormous key piece to the staff that I think is going to pay dividends for LSU. Here he is introducing Atkins.
Yeah, so first of all, excited about Alex and his addition to our staff. He brings a great deal of experience as a coordinator, but more importantly, his depth and background in the run game. As an offensive line coach, he adds another perspective in that room with Brad. He will not be, stepping on Brad's toes. Brad's done an incredible job. This is really having somebody that will coach the tight ends and have a specific focus towards our run game and how it marries and matches to what I'm looking for within our overall offensive structure. So having somebody that is dedicated to that, having somebody that has his eye on it every day, I felt where we are today that was a great need, and to get somebody with his kind of experience and building run games in particular. So, again, I just think the need, the timing, all of those things make it a great fit.
Huge addition. I think this is, look, man, I love the addition of DJ Pickett. I love the addition of Nick Anderson. I love the addition of some of these portal guys that they've brought in, some of the high school players. I would put Alex Atkins' addition up there as high as anybody of what he will mean to the program. I mean, really, we talked about it in the offseason of, the immediate offseason once the season immediately ended. Where does LSU need to improve on the staff? And it wasn't really about taking anybody off the staff. It was about maybe adding some pieces to the staff to support, help, continue the development of some guys that are already in place. There's no argument that Brad Davis is one of the top, if not the best offensive line recruiter in the country. I don't think that we can even argue it in the conference. But I think in the country, he's 1, 2, maybe 3. If he's in the top 3, he's not number 3. And watching the players develop on the field throughout the season, there was a little bit of question around, they could probably improve. They could probably do a little better of a job with the caliber of player that they have on campus. These guys should be improving, developing maybe at a more rapid rate than what they are. right? The inability to run the ball with the group that they had in place was very head-scratching to not only novice fans, but to football lifers. I mean, we would talk to coaches and like, I can't believe this group can't run the football with any type of consistency, right? And I think there's probably a lot of elements that go into it, but one of the first things that you look at is obviously the scheme and the coaching. I think Alex Atkins comes in immediately and has an instant impact on the run game. I think you see it day one because they have they got the guys, they got the dudes, they have the athletes, the caliber of player that you need to be effective up front. But they just haven't, they haven't aligned it all and it all work out. But now, I think the addition of Atkins with the guys that they have coming in to the guys that they have already on campus, I think he's a huge, enormous addition that's going to make like big impact early on. So I would have Alex Atkins as like the top 3 additions of the offseason.
It's interesting to see the staff kind of take shape as where it was, I guess, a year ago where you had Joe Sloan, offensive coordinator, co-offensive coordinator with Cortez Hankton. Then Hankton was given the title of pass game coordinator. And now you're starting to see this look more and more like, I guess, other kind of coming together more like, a well-run program where you have a run game coordinator. It seems like some of these holes that are being filled, it feels like, it always feels like revisionist history a little bit. Whenever you go back and you look, it's like, why didn't you have a run game coordinator? It's like, oh, I guess I'll go get one.
Right.
And so it's just some of those things that are a little head-scratching to me. And Alex Atkins couldn't be a better hire in terms of what you have on paper. Another Broyles Award candidate and finalist that is kind of in the same vein as like when Matt House's name was hot. Like same thing kind of happened. He's named to the Broyles list. He gets an extension for a contract at Florida State. It all goes to hell with DJU. And he's on the streets, and you were able to sign an offensive coordinator that had a 15-0 team that got snubbed from the college football playoffs, signed as the tight ends coach and run game coordinator. But for LSU,
man.
Like that's a great voice to have in the room, and also has Louisiana ties. Like it couldn't, on paper, it couldn't be any better because, like you said, the run game, it was just kind of mind-numbing at some points. Like you see Miles Frazier at the Senior Bowl, and you're like, whoa, I didn't know he was that big. I didn't know he was a dude like that. And you have Emory Jones, and you have Will Campbell, and then you just got some of it can be probably blamed on injury. That's when it really kind of started to look at its worst. Whenever it was like Paul Mubanga in there, and then you started looking at like a lot of freshmen on the offensive line right now, and so that can be some to blame for it. But it just became like a part of your offense where it was non-existent. There's 3 games where LSU on that losing streak, Nussmeier threw it 45 times, 48 times, and 51 times. Like. That's hard to win that way.
Yeah, it is, man. I mean, and that's where you saw it really kind of collapse on Nussmeier's head.
Yeah.
And I'm not making any excuses for him. I think that we knew the deal going in. I didn't think that we knew that they were going to be able to, they were going to struggle running the ball like they did. I thought that was going to take a lot of pressure off of him and allow him to really develop and cook, So he showed early on that he can handle it. He showed that it got a little heavy in the middle of the season, and then he found it and regained it towards the end of the year. And now he's going into the offseason as, he's going to be one of the most hyped quarterbacks going into next season. I mean, he'll be right up there with Arch and Sellers and all these guys that everybody's going to be talking about going into the year. DJ Lagway. I mean, there's going to be guys that are at the top of the list, and Nussmeier is going to be going to be high up there. So,
and that's not even SEC. I think that's around the country.
No.
SEC has great quarterbacks, but I think this is even you can take in the totality of all of college football.
Levitt.
Yeah, I don't think you get far down the list without finding Nussmeier's name, and that's evident in the Heisman odds. But that withstanding, when you look around the country, like, oof, like what he did last year, like if he takes that step that LSU quarterbacks seem to take in year 2, watch out. But when it comes to English, Alex Atkins. Alex English is the golfer. Alex Atkins, when a run game coordinator, do you think like that is specifically like run blocking, or is it new scheme that you'll see?
I think that you have to give these guys titles for pay. I think that once these guys get into the building, you use them in their strengths, right? Alex Atkins is a offensive line expert. That's his specialty. So you're placing him in that room just to add more brain power. I don't think that there is something that he's just isolated to do. Yes, it will be his responsibility to be the run game coordinator, that he's working hand in hand with Brad Davis, Frank Wilson, and everybody who's got their hands in that pot, right? So I don't think that, when you get inside and you see kind of the inner workings of college football programs, and I've had the luxury of just being able to see that, okay, this is how it works. Like the 2019 for me was the most access I've ever had in this job, right? Where, Derek Panamsky was the football operations guy. Ed Ogeron was the head coach. We had great relationships with those guys. We were given pretty much full access to the day-to-day operations. We could kind of come and go. You could go into the building and, go sit in a coach's office and just watch, just learn, just see how this thing operates. Go sit in the equipment room. Go sit in the, with the equipment manager and just see the personalities that came into that room every single day and had stories to tell and things to catch up on. And you kind of got the inner workings of, oh, this is how this worked. Joe Brady's not the offensive specialist or passing game, whatever he is. He's pretty much the co-offensive coordinator. He's sitting in there drawing up plays with Steve Ensminger, coming up with the play of, sure, whatever the title is, but he's as important as the offensive coordinator is. I think that's going to be the role of Alex Atkins. I think he's going to walk in there and be like, why are you guys doing it like this? And if Brad Davis has, an explanation that he believes that he can't help and bring more brain power and knowledge and expertise or more opportunities to develop and get better, I think that's the purpose of bringing all these guys together. When you put a really good staff together, sure, people have their specialties, but at the baseline of it, they're all football guys. They're all guys that can talk shop, talk ball, watch the film, look at the scheme, get on the board, do all the things. And that's what they love to do. You know what I mean? A lot of these guys, you ask them how you want to spend your day, just, order a couple of pizzas, put us in a coaching office, and let us just watch film and draw plays all day. And I think when you add Davis to the offensive staff that they have, it now kind of feels like the defensive staff last year, right? You think about some of those defensive meetings that we were talking about last year where you've got Blake Baker, you've got Bo Davis, you've got Corey Raymond, you've got Jake Olsa, you got Kevin Peoples, you got all these guys that are just, they're just football junkies. They love the game. Lock me in a room. Let's talk ball. Let's talk shop. How can we use this player at this position and using him in this scheme? Let's watch the film here. Let's use these guys. It's just, I think once you get those guys into a room, it's all about how do we get the best out of our group. And as much as the run game coordinator, title is going to be on Alex Atkins' office door, him and Brad Davis and Frank Wilson are going to spend a ton of time talking about how they can make the run game most efficient. It's just more brain power. It's just more experience. It's just more eyeballs that have seen it up close that tell you, hey, this is what I see. And, that's gold in Power 4 big level college football programs. You can't have a stash of enough of those guys.
Yeah, it does feel shades of what when Nick Saban got this party rolling with the shadow staff.
Absolutely.
LSU is kind of doing that same thing where you're getting guys that are either on buyouts at another school that you're able to, whether it be the former defensive coordinator at Miami or Alex Atkins at Florida State, where you're getting guys where you're like, man, they had some big time involvement in some big time programs when they were pretty good, and then they have a fall off where some schools are very reactionary, fire a coordinator, and you go, well, where do you turn to next? And then it's like, I don't expect Atkins to stay at LSU for very long, but you have him for now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's to say, you go scoop
I
him
think
up
I think you're playing with house money with Olsen and Peoples. Really? Did you see what Matt Rule's doing? No spring game. Doesn't want the country to see his players.
That.
I love it. I would start moving towards more of an NFL OTA model. If I'm the SEC, I saw Sarkisian's contemplating it, thinking about it. He's probably going to have to go through the He's going to have to go through the SEC office, just like Nebraska's going to have to go through the Big Ten office. I mean, those are marketable money-making days for the Big Ten network and the SEC network, and that's, something that they count on. Now, didn't Ole Miss do something like a pro day for their spring game a couple of years ago where they put it on TV, but they weren't playing? Lane Kiffin didn't want them hitting. He didn't want them, subject to that. But Matt Rule's saying, I don't want you looking at my program. I don't want you seeing my guys before the spring portal opens, and you just sit there and watch my spring game and decide what guys you're going to go after, right? I mean, and I love it. Like, I get it. If I was a head coach, I mean, just by nature, they're the most insecure people you've ever met. And then you open up transfer portals and you allow people to see their spring games on TV. Like, I would be the same way. Like, we're not playing that, man. I mean, not in today's age, especially if I'm a school like Nebraska where, the SEC's just headhunting you. Like, where can I go find a defensive lineman? Where can I go find a cornerback? Where can I go find a wide receiver? I don't know. Let's watch the Nebraska spring game and see if we can't make a run at a couple of these guys. And Matt Rule's like, I'm pulling the plug on that spring game. You're not showing anything. And I think that is going to be something that we see in the new model of college football where the offseason turns into the NFL, where there's not, 15 spring practice. There's periods of OTAs that you report for, and you have spring training, but it's not geared towards any type of spring game because of what Matt Rule's point is. I'm not just open season allowing people to turn on their television and open market my program. You know what I mean? Like,
especially when you have a 5-star quarterback freshman, Dylan Raiola, last year. And it's like, I want everybody to see him. Like, maybe we should go make a Odyssey at Nebraska. Like, you could make that conversation in your head to be like, that's maybe a quarterback we should go after. But if you're Nebraska, I don't know how much money these things bring in, because it's going to be a tough conversation with Matt Rule and whoever he has to talk to if he wants to get this thing canceled. 60,000 people went to their spring game last year. 4th highest attended in the country.
Yeah.
How many people do you think are going to go see Arch Manning play?
Oh, right. I mean, I think it's something that you will start to see, right? I mean, it's something that you will start to really, people will really start taking.
Because, I mean,
taking that model and running with it.
But from an SEC network perspective, like, no, we want to televise.
No, they're going to have to find something.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, I think every team's going to have like a pro day or something. Every team's going to have like a flag football game, or you're going to have some type of something that I can market and sell, and what we can package and watch. You know what I mean? Like, that's non-negotiable. Do you guys like your contracts? You guys like all that money, right? Well, then you have to give me some type of entertainment in the spring. And, I mean, they're not going to be able to get out of that. I just don't know how you rewire it, right? Where it's
like the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's pretty much what it is. Like, we have to do something. Like, ESPN's paying us all of this money. They paid for the game. Nobody wants to play it. There's no benefit to playing it, but we got to give them something. So, I mean, let's get a bunch of, foam balls and let's go jump in a pit and I don't know. I don't
put all these big hands.
I don't know what it is, man. I mean, I don't know what we do here, but
I mean, you could say the Pro Bowl struggled and it's a record low.
Sure.
But 5 million people watched it. That does better than any other probably weekend programming that isn't sports. So as bad as it may seem, people are watching it. 5 million people to watch nothing.
Nothing.
And so you could get away with the model in which you put something on for a spring game, but I don't think you'd do nothing if you're Matt Rule in Nebraska. Be like, we're not doing anything. I'm like, nothing.
Yeah, nothing. I mean, like,
y'all aren't looking at my roster.
I mean, you're not getting. I mean, I'll run the walk-ons out there.
Right. I mean, that's what you would probably turn it into, is like a tryout day.
Sure.
Like Vince Papali it. Like, let some students run out there, see if you can beat Jelani Watkins in a race. You start on the 30, he gets to go to the 40.
Right, yeah, something like that. Willie Mays Hayes.
Yes.
Oh, shit, I've been cut already? Here's Brian Kelly talking us to 7, talking about getting back around football, getting back in the building and looking towards next season.
Well, I'm excited to be back in this building, certainly the 2.5 weeks that the head coach gets on the road is a very small period of time, but one that's very intense. And so you're out of the building. So you don't really get a chance to spend time with, over 30 players that are coming back into the program. So I'm just excited to get a chance to be around our guys, continue to build the chemistry of the 2025 team. But the big picture plan is exactly what you said, it was to surround Garrett on offense, to give Blake the pieces that he needs on defense to have a championship roster. And I believe we did that on paper. Now we need to go to work on that, and that work is in the details over the next few months.
Good to have football back, really, for Brian Kelly and LSU, as he's expressing there. Good to be back in the building. Here he is talking about his quarterback, Colin Hurley, who was in an off-season car accident. He's given an update on Hurley's health.
Well, as you know, we've left because of his age. At 17, he's under 18. We've left a lot of that up to the family. I've been there to see him on multiple occasions. Progress is real. He is back in Jacksonville, and reports in talking to his dad yesterday were really positive. So this is another scenario where there's a recovery process here for him. But I think everybody's optimistic.
Good to hear on Colin Hurley that he's getting closer to a full recovery, or getting closer to getting back to full strength, as Brian Kelly was talking there. A couple of all-season additions at wide receiver, including Nick Anderson from Oklahoma. Here is Kelly talking about some of the guys that he's brought in.
Well, all of these pieces were clearly part of the design in what we were trying to achieve in, getting Garrett some more weapons. And then securing the investments that we've made across the board. Obviously Colin puts us in a different situation. He was healthy at the time when we went through the portal. We hope that he will be able to join us later. But Michael is a young man that has SEC experience. And we wanted to supplement that in our room. If you're going to go out and upgrade your roster in the manner that we did, continue to develop your football team, I think we all know that at some time, number 2 may have to be called upon. And if he does, we feel like we've got in Colin and certainly with Michael, we've got 2 guys that can go in and continue to compete for a championship.
Michael is obviously Michael Van Buren, the quarterback who's transferred in from Mississippi State, who he's referencing there. And then, of course, Nick Anderson, the big wide receiver from Oklahoma, coming in, who will be another weapon that he's talking about for Garrett Nussmeier. What's his expectation on some of these transfers and how fast they can impact the roster?
I think experience at the tight end position to marry with a really exceptionally young player in Tradez, but bringing in Bauer Sharp, who's got a lot of experience and, a veteran kind of presence there at the tight end position. He's been outstanding. I think Jack Pyburn brings more than just his ability on the field, but how he impacts everybody in the locker room and in the weight room. His demeanor, his attitude is infectious. I think those 2 guys. I think we've already talked about the wide receivers. I think all of them have been working out hard with our quarterbacks, and I can tell you just by the numbers, they live up to what the speed quotient and things that have been out there about them. We're backing that up with Catapult. So all of those wide receivers are making an impact. And I'd say, Mansour Delaney has been very, very, I think, impactful at the cornerback position. We've got some younger guys, some guys with experience, but we don't have a veteran player back there, and his leadership and just the way he's handled himself has been outstanding.
About some of the impact guys that he expects there in coming in here in the first season. He gives a update on Kyron Lacey and where he stands for Pro Day. He also talks about the second transfer portal window that's going to pop up here in the spring, on how active LSU is going to be there or what they're looking towards there. Here he is, Kelly, talking about that.
I think we go into this next portal window with no expectations of we need to get somebody out of the spring portal. It would have to be something that just was a right fit for us. So we don't go into the second portal with any expectations like we had going into the December portal. Relative to Kyron, I know his lawyer just recently provided some information. That's all I know. We're going to have to monitor that situation probably, before we make any decisions relative to his status in Pro Day.
Kelly talking about Kyron Lacey there and what his status is for the upcoming workouts. Here he is talking about Nussmeier and what his offseason expectation is for his signal caller.
Well, I think it starts back with him staying here when Jaden Daniels is here. Very easily could have jumped into the transfer portal. I think being the son of a coach, maybe there is that, I would say, understanding or conversation about persistence and waiting for your opportunity. And I think as a coach's son, a lot of those things were probably discussed. And I think at the end of the day, I'm sure it was Garrett's decision, but he comes from a coach's family, and those things were always discussed. And so I think that probably led to him waiting for his opportunity. And then, being from a football family, he's going to understand how the chemistry of a team and leading by example and surrounding yourself with great people is much more important than just any individual award. And I think that's what he brings to the culture of our football team. And I think that, and I don't think I'm reaching, is something that when you're around the game your entire life lends itself to thinking that way.
I agree wholeheartedly there with Brian Kelly. I love the fact that Garrett Nussmeier has stuck it out and stayed with LSU because of what I believe it is going to pay off for with Garrett Nussmeier. It might not happen in his senior year. I think it will happen at some point. There's a great interview that was aired yesterday on the Le Batard Show from Radio Row down in New Orleans from Baton Rouge's own Warrick Dunn. Dunn spent about 20 minutes with the crew from Le Batard. And I love Warrick Dunn. Warrick Dunn, for me, is kind of one of those guys growing up. He was a superhero. I mean, my grandfather and dad would take us out to Catholic High football games on Friday night, and Warrick Dunn was a sophomore running around 5A football fields like it was his backyard. And then he would just continue, like his junior year, he was better. His senior year, it felt like he scored every time he touched the ball. They moved him from running back to quarterback because he was just the best athlete on the field, and they want him to touch the ball every play. Then in key situations, they'd flip the field and put him at cornerback, and he'd make game-winning interceptions, goes to Florida State. He tells the Florida State story about how Bobby Bowden on his first day of practice kind of tricked him, recruited him as a running back, let him work out as a running back all offseason. The first day of practice, he said, Warrick, we want to look at you at DB. And he said, Coach, I'll make a deal with you. Give me a week at running back. If you don't like what you see, I'll go play DB. After the first week, he was running first team running back. And Florida State, he was the national champs his freshman year. But Dunn talked about the new age of college athletics. And he's old school. Warrick Dunn, I think, turned 50. Just this past week. But he was talking about at some point you're going to get served up adversity. Whether it's life, whether it's career, whether it's social, whether it's athletics, at some form, it's going to smack you, right? I mean, like, we can't outrun that tide that is going to catch us in adversity. And college is a great place to really build and find the tools that you need to deal with that. Because you'll face that adversity. Odds are you're gonna face that first piece of adversity right there in college. And for a lot of these athletes, it comes in the form of playing time, injuries, setbacks, competition, all that goes into playing sports. And Dunn lays it out, I thought, yesterday, listening to his interview, so poetically and elegant in the way that he describes what he sees as a mentor to young pros. He's part owner of the Atlanta Falcons. And guys that he still keeps in contact with, whether it's working out younger guys, whether it's being around Florida State football, whether it's just being around young professional athletes that call and yearn for his advice. And the life without adversity, and the guys that get to a point where you don't know how to deal with it. These highlights are incredible. He was so good. I mean, like, he was, like I said, I mean, he was Superman to people. I mean, I was probably 8, 9 years, 10 years old watching this at Olympia Stadium. When he got into the open field, man, I'll never forget, we went to Catholic High, played Jesuit at Tad Gormley on a Friday night, and Kevin Franklin, rest in peace, Kevin Franklin, who ended up going to LSU. Franklin was in that same backfield with Warrick Dunn, and, I mean, a lot of recruiting services had Franklin and Dunn like top 2 running backs in America. I mean, it was nuts. Curly Hallman was the coach at LSU and turned Franklin into a DB and couldn't land Warrick Dunn. But it was just, I mean, that Catholic High backfield was incredible. But Warrick Dunn, just a great dude, and had great insight to, that just the lack of facing adversity for guys that, it's inevitable to come. And then when it hits, you're lost. You got no idea how to deal with it. Here he is, more from Brian Kelly. This is 13. Talking about Trey'Dez Green being a part of the basketball team and what it means for his status with football.
So certainly we're excited about Trey'Dez, and this is something that he wanted to do. This is something his family and I talked about, and we talked about that this was going to be hard. You're playing in the SEC in both basketball and football. He's probably lost a little bit of weight, but he's involved in our weight training. So he is training physically in the weight room with our guys. He is not tapped out of that, which obviously we're excited about. But he's lost a little bit of weight. Running up and down the court from a cardiovascular standpoint is a little bit different than, cutting off the C-gap. So I think from that perspective, we're fine because we're going to continue to train him and really excited about his future. Obviously we're all looking at Colin and again, it's a day-to-day situation, and talking to his dad, Charlie, there's really good progress. So I think we all come at from a similar perspective, is that we're hoping for the best, but don't have any certain timetable as to when he might be back.
There he is talking about Trey'Dez and what it means for him playing basketball. Obviously, you got to keep your eyes on what happens with the weight standpoint, but, look, I think a high-level athlete like that playing two sports can only help you. Staff additions, offseason. Here's Kelly talking about more than just adding Alex Atkins this offseason.
Yeah, so I think, first of all, we've hired Aman Anad to be involved in our special teams. He was at Grambling. Really excited about him. We'll add another special teams coach to the mix there to just support that unit, those units in particular, and feel really good about that. We've added defensive analyst Noah Joseph, who's an experienced coach, both on and off the field, primarily worked with Blake at Missouri. So there's, obviously they're very familiar. He'll work in the back end of our defense. Tim Rattay, who many know probably from his time at Louisiana Tech, will work on the offensive side of the ball. We've hired another offensive assistant from Oregon, Antonio Parks. He'll work with the wide receivers. And we have a couple of others that are pending HR that I can't talk about today. But I think in total, we're talking about 8 positions, and we're excited about those that have moved on as well because they've been given great opportunities. Certainly Slade Nagel getting the chance to be a coordinator, and Bob Diaco getting a chance to work with Bill Belichick. I think I go across the board. Every one of the coaches, Coach Fitch now gets a coordinator's position at Charlotte. All of them got leadership positions or positions where it can enhance their career. So we're really excited about that.
Kelly talking about some of the staff changes that he's made and bringing some guys in. Here he is talking about transfer portal guys and getting them up to speed in the offseason.
Yeah, so, I think we can start with, in the portal, Braylon Moore and Josh Thompson will be two that will be part of that mix in the spring. But it's important to point out that there's going to be great competition. And you saw that in the bowl game, how really if you look across the board, Miles Frazier is the only player that does not return in that unit. So all of those guys will get the opportunity to compete, plus the two that I've mentioned that were starters both at Virginia Tech and Northwestern. We think that makes for a very competitive spring.
I know this time last year we heard just how beneficial this time period was for a freshman like Ahmad Bro to put on weight and add, strength to his body. I'm just curious, early reports from the strength and conditioning staff, if there's any freshmen that have stood out in that department this year and just kind of what that looks like.
I think across the board, the ability to put on good weight from a nutrition standpoint and train the physical elements necessary during this period of time. I don't think there is a freshman that we feel has not met that challenge in terms of coming in at mid-semester. I don't want to point out any one individual, but all of them have meet or exceeded the kind of growth chart, if you will, that we put in front of them. And that's really encouraging.
Recruiting emphasis, still Louisiana first?
Well, I think you just look at, the roster itself. We want to be able to pull our base. Our base starts in this greater Baton Rouge area and continues throughout the state of Louisiana. So, look, with the new settlement coming down, and assuming that it does, your roster is going to be tightened. The numbers are not out there yet, but I can tell you that if you're a walk-on in this program, you're looked at as a scholarship player because the numbers are going to be scrutinized when it comes to the sports. So all of those guys can play here at LSU. It can help our football team, and we want to continue to find those players in the state.
Last soundbite here. Shea Dixon serving him up the last question of the day.
Well, I think I would begin by, how do you use the portal, right? The portal is set up for, either giving kids an opportunity to play the game where they are not in a position to do so, i.e. if players leave here, they're looking for opportunities to play. The transfer portal allows you that. It also allows you the opportunity, if guys aren't meeting the elite standards of your program, then they may have to find another place to settle. On the other side of the portal, you can certainly build a roster and help your roster. I don't want our roster to be built through the portal. I would like it to be topped off. This year was a little bit heavier. We felt more across the board and evident 8 on offense, 7 on defense, and 1 special team, that we needed more depth and more experience across our roster to be a championship roster. So I believe that the portal has served us from that perspective in terms of additions and others that have left, that we strengthened our program. I think we've made incredible strides relative to NIL and the importance of how monies are raised and making sure that our fan base is educated about that. And I think I've been at the front of that with the $1 million match. And so I think all of those were in a much better place than we were, say, 8 months ago. Our roster, our staff, our focus on NIL, our ability to raise money for NIL have put us in a position where I know our program is now poised to be a championship program.
Kelly, great interview yesterday as he wraps up there and gives a just
State of the Union.
Kind of a feeling of where the program is headed, what some of the improvements that he had to make. And I think that was a very solid press conference for someone who doesn't routinely speak with the media on a consistent schedule when he's not